Hi. Thanks everyone. Good morning for joining the session. Welcome all the participants. I think we have a good number of around 77 participants today. So my name is Gopal. I work as the Director for Financial Services for Deloitte. So I will be the host for you. You will stay with me for the next 60 minutes. So I think the main context of this webinar is to talk in lines to what is happening with respect to the digital banking revolution across the ASEAN and specifically on Vietnam. So sitting outside Vietnam, I see there's a lot of action happening in digital banking in Vietnam. A lot of investments are coming to Vietnam. Many new fintech companies are flourishing. The banks are looking at a lot of transformation agenda. So in that context, I would like to introduce my key four panelists today. So I think I feel I have a very interesting panel today. I have people representing from the academic university level who worked on digital banking strategy. I have the C-level suite, and then I have the people who have built wallets, and then I have a consultant who can speak for the industry as well. So with no further ado, let me quickly introduce my panelists today. Maybe I start with Mr. Duck. So Mr. Duck, good morning. I think Mr. Duck has come with around some 20 years of experience working in consulting, research, mostly in the field of information technology. So he worked as a project manager for many of the banking and banking, business, and education sector projects. I think one of them, which is quite interesting, is he recently acted as the lead national consultant for the digital banking strategy in Vietnam. I think this is quite promising. I think a lot of inputs we would need from you, sir, on the what's happening in the digital banking strategy in Vietnam later. And then next I have in the panel is Mr. Bryan. So Mr. Bryan comes with an extensive experience of banking and digital across Europe, Russia, Middle East, US, and Asia. I think Bryan, that is awesome, looks like everywhere in the globe. So he has led senior roles at Rabobank International, Alpha Bank Russia, Bank of Ireland, RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, MSB Bank Vietnam, and First Abu Dhabi Bank, and then another consulting firm. So in his career, starting in digital in 1993, he has done extensive work on digital banking, digital-only banking, digital transformation, digital marketing, etc. And then he also sits as a mentor for many of the fintech firms. Welcome, Mr. Bryan. So next I have on the panel is Mr. Anthony. I think who don't know about Momo in Vietnam, it's quite popular. And then Mr. Anthony represents he works as the chairman of Momo. And then he's also previously the president and CEO of Mint in Philippines, which was a JV between Alipay and the Globe Telecom, which operates the GCash wallet along with the Ayala Group. So I think he come with a lot of corporate background, working with some of the global banking giant like Citibank for 17 years across Asia, Latin America, and US. So thanks, Mr. Anthony, for joining us. Welcome you. And then the last but not the least, I have the most powerful woman on the panel, Ms. To. She come with around 17 years of experience in the banking industry. So before joining Deloitte, she was Deputy Director of Strategy Policy Department, Vietnam Development Bank. And then she come with experience with other consulting firms. So currently and previously, she was leading around some 40 plus consulting projects based on digital banking, digital fraud, anti-money laundering, credit risk, market risk. So there's a lot of work there. And then she also represented many of the work working for ASEAN countries like Laos, Thailand, Indonesia, etc. So welcome, Ms. So. Great to have you here. So, gentlemen, welcome everyone to this panel. I think we have an interesting audience. There are a few questions already put in by the audience during their registration. I'll try to put in accordingly. And then few quick housekeeping rules to the audience. If you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat group. I will try to put to the panelists accordingly. And then towards the end of the session, we have an audience poll to get your feedback, how this is and how we can improve to bring in more sessions from our side. So we encourage your feedback later. So, okay, so these are the rules of the session today. Maybe I'll start my questions starting with Ms. To. So, To, I think we have seen the recent situation. Many of the banks and the financial institutions are going back to their drawing board because of the COVID scenario or the internal strategy. They're all looking at the digital strategy. So I would like to get your help to share any insights of what you're seeing in the Vietnam market with respect to the banking current and future digital agenda. And where is the current focus? Is it like going completely on digitization or launching digital products or improving efficiency or onboarding the digital talent? So what do you see in the market?
Hi, Gopal. Thanks for your question and good morning, everyone. So for the question from Gopal, I would like to share that like in the past few years, we have seen a fast growth in the banking and financial service industry as many focusing on digitalization and in competition with fintech player as well. So we also see many Southeast Asia countries have released their digital banking framework for the non-bank player to participate in the market. For example, in December last year, Singapore already released the result for bank digital license, and Malaysia will be announced the result in the Q2 next year. Philippines also awarded some few license as well in this year. And in Vietnam, we've seen a lot of commercial bank, right? The current commercial bank, they have set up their own digital strategy for the banking or digital platform. So I think it's a varied trends of digital banking in the region as well in Vietnam. For the banking digital industry and strategy in Vietnam, we also think there are something the bank should focus, right? So back to the benefits of digital, we see for the bank to lowering costs and speedy as well, especially for the retail bank who wants to acquire and serve millions of customers. And this trend was like pushed by the COVID-19 pandemic as well. So bank will focus on front end to serve customer. They can launch digital product for customer, for example, eKYC, without requiring customer to go to the physical branch to open bank account or offer more mobile or internet banking products. Or bank also having some automation tool to provide the automation credit approval for good client or set up the 24/7 online customer service. But from the back end, we also think that banks should focus on the back end as well to have successful digital transformation. So they should do a lot of things in the back end to reduce paperwork and improve the efficiency for their internal bank procedure. And together with this trend, banks should focus on the change management, because when digitalization coming, a lot of things will change from organization structure to policy process, role responsibility as well. And banks should focus on enhance the risk and compliance issue, because when digital life happen, a lot of things, a lot of risks will incur, including cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. So, for your insights on what's happening with respect to the digitization agenda. So, and I completely agree, and this is similar to what I see in the region as well. So that lays the context to go ask my next question to Mr. Dirk on. Mr. Dirk, what we see is there's a lot of new entrants coming in the Vietnam space with respect to the wallets or the insurtech players in the financial space. And then in the recent days, there's a lot of foreign investment coming into Vietnam, which I take a lot of pride, and that's a very good sign. So how do you see these trends, knowing the current economic conditions or the population in Malaysia, in Vietnam? Where do you see, is there enough opportunity for all the players in Vietnam? And considering both short-term and long-term, and in your view, what are some of the considerations for these players? Mr. Juk.
Okay, thanks, Gobar, for the very interesting question. I myself believe that Vietnam is a great market for fintech companies, including e-wallets. As you know, we have more than 80% of retail market is paid for in cash. So I would like to start with some statistics to reflect on some problems about current status of e-wallet and fintech market in Vietnam. We all know that Vietnam's population is nearly 100 million, but only about, I think, more than 30% of the population with a bank account, equivalent to 30 million bank account. It means that we have a market of over 60 million people who do not have a bank account, but can still use e-wallet and other fintech services for daily transaction. In other side, up to 26% of the transaction in Vietnam are still in cash, while the internet using rate of Vietnamese people is up to 66%. If we compare with Singapore, 8 out of 10 Singaporeans are using e-wallet to pay for goods and services. So we can see that the difference in this number shows us there is still a lot of room for e-wallet as well as the other fintech development. Talking about the governance support policy, we should refer to National Strategy on Development of Digital Technology Enterprise in Vietnam to 2030. Vietnam is setting a goal that by 2030, Vietnam will have 100,000 digital technology companies to develop the digital economy, to build smart city, e-government, and apply digital technology achievement widely in many fields, such as social, economic field, and implementation digital transformation. The strategy focuses on developing 4 types of digital technology company in Vietnam, including developing core technology, developing digital technology products, deploying digital technology solution, and innovative startup business in digital technology. In order to have rapid growth in both quantity and quality, but sustainably and especially in the right direction, I think the cooperation with the foreign companies, the participant of foreign investor is very, very important. The market also needs, besides needing capital for development, the market also needs the companies that provide development platforms, digital transformation platform, as well as consulting firm in digital transformation. However, we all know that when there are too many people involved in the market, the competition will definitely become increasing fierce. Let me take an example in the e-wallet market. By 2021, we had about 39 licensed e-wallet, but 90% of market share in both value and the number of transactions belong to only 5 payment intermediary companies. Especially all these 5 companies has foreign capital from 30 to over 90%. In terms of results, the field of sharing economies model as the big playing field, requiring very strong and long-term investment. In the first stage, company had to pour money and accept losses to gain market share. Company are forced to find way to attract customer and at the same time retain the customer. The characteristic of the digital services is the customer loyalty, unlike traditional services. Customer will switch very easily to other services when they see new promotion policy. So it is predicted that e-wallet firms would compete with each other by pouring money into promotion like Grab and Uber did several years ago, and loser will burn all their money and few winners will take it all. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Duc. I think you have raised a very important point, like around only 30% having a banking population of 30% of the population of bank accounts. I think I see that's a lot of opportunity, be it for the digital banks or the wallet players to offer some of these market. And then the important point you raised is how do you retain customers, and how do you bring the loyalty with these customers? Like I think in my personal experience, I see like for the wallets or to stay in the game, you have to incentivize every day your customers. That is a lot of burning cash from your books. So thanks for the interesting points. So that takes me to Mr. Anthony, who on the payments part. I think Mr. Anthony has there is no disagreement to this. Payments and lending are the most heavily disrupted space in the ASEAN. And then every time when I personally visit Vietnam, I very much surprised with the payment innovation that is happening in Vietnam. So we just wanted to get your thoughts on what are some of the trends you're seeing on specifically payments in Vietnam, and where are we heading with respect to payments innovation, and any insights on how Momo is prepared to stay ahead in this payments revolution. So I think many of the participants want to hear more about Momo and your strategy. So any insights from you, Mr. Anthony?
Sure, thank you. So yes, I was reading in the last 24 hours a report put out by London-based research firm Boku, saying over half the world will be using wallets by 2025. But more importantly, that Southeast Asia is the fastest growing region in the world. And that local players tend to dominate in each market. And of course, you know, in that report, they do say that Momo accounts for over half of the usage in Vietnam. Now, Vietnam is, as everybody on the panel knows, a vibrant, growing digital economy with a young, tech-savvy population. The Google Bain Temasek report, which is often referred to, talks about that economy being at about $14 billion in 2020 and going up to about $52 billion in 2025. Now, the digital economy as defined by them is just a few categories. So e-commerce, ride-sharing, food delivery, travel, media. And given that this is still a highly underpenetrated bank card market, wallets like Momo are a key enabler in that digital economy, where we're trying to replace cash, as Mr. Đức pointed out, right? Cash is still king in Vietnam. But for e-commerce, for example, it's not just the marketplaces like Lazada, Tiki, or Sendo, where Momo's a leading payment option, but there's a lot of social sellers on Facebook, right? And by the way, we estimate that commerce on Facebook is as large, if not larger, than all the marketplaces put together. And Momo kind of fulfills that through peer-to-peer payments. For food and grocery delivery, we're the leading payment option for players like Baemin, but also Co-op Mart for grocery and Bay as a local ride-sharing player, right? But taxis as well, right, with QR codes and in the likes of Vinasun. With OTA, aggregating the likes of Traveloka and Agoda, but also with direct connections to the airlines in Vietnam. So I think the point is that beyond that, even entertainment, App Store, Play Store, we're one of the first payment options that are used by customers. And then we go offline with merchants, where we target typically high frequency in supermarkets, convenience stores, and coffee shops, right? So I think the point is that the addressable market is much more than the formal digital economy now. Where we are headed in terms of innovation, I think several market players, large and small, will solve problems for different customer segments, making it easier, faster, better, and more affordable for consumers and businesses. Right? In the payment space, we see a lot of movement towards or a growing focus on solving for small businesses and the gig economy. So we are looking at the move to modern retail and online to offline or O2O activity, where Momo's builds solutions like a digital voucher marketplace, where even small sellers can help drive traffic to their stores. We're allowing hosting of mini apps in our app, which can help a range of merchants leverage our traffic. We're working on local discovery for small food and beverage merchants. And then there's this trend towards financial services, where, whether it's credit or insurance or even wealth management, data-driven models and embedded finance provides an opportunity for players like Momo. And really, to answer your question on how we prepare and how we stay ready for this, we do 2 or 3 things. One is we continually evolve our own product offering, and I gave you some examples, and make sure we drive the best user experience there. 2, we accelerate, the capability set that we have. For example, in AI, not only do we hire top-tier talent, but very recently we bought a company with a personalized or personalization or recommendation engine. And the third area is around forging commercial and strategic partnerships to grow our ecosystem that's evolving in all directions, whether it's global big tech or local conglomerate businesses or banks or consumer finance companies. So that's the way we stay in touch with the innovation in the space.
Thanks, Anthony. I think you have brought in very important points, I think, which are required for anyone, like how you put a niche product, how you give the rich user experience, and then how you bring in the emerging technologies in the way of doing things. I think they were quite valid. And then maybe with whatever you have explained with respect to the model you're working with, the very players, I think sound like an ecosystem model or a future super app kind of a model, which I can foresee. So wish you good luck there. So that makes me move to the next question to Mr. Bryan. So Bryan, I know we spoke very recently. I think you might have a blanket approval given to me, like ask me anything kind of questions. So this one is more on the profitability of the digital banks. I know we are following all the news in the digital banks globally. So if we see today, there are some 250 plus kind of digital banks, but only 5% of them are profitable. So in fact, that's one of the questions from the audience as well, like how do we read this situation? So in the digital banking world, is it too much fuss about the P&L, or because if we focus on a specific niche segment, can we really talk of profitability in the interim, or is it more of a valuation play? Sorry if it is too technical, but I know you will love to answer.
Oh, that's a nice one. You enjoy. Yeah, we always get the good ones. Okay. Guys, not all digital banks are the same. And it's quite interesting. I read the recent BCG report. Out of all of the profitable digital banks amongst that segment, 77% of them are in Asia. Okay, so it's quite kind of interesting. So we're getting something right on this part of the world. But I think we need to set this in context, guys. Most banks are in the kind of banking 3.0 space, and that includes neos as well. Those of you who know me, I've been involved in quite a few neos, particularly in the UK over the years. And what they're trying to do, and it's important because it's an evolution, they're looking at an improved user experience, okay? A better user experience, like eKYC. It's a better user experience. They're looking at operating models that reduce cost, okay? So, you'll see some banks looking at RPA, you'll see some banks going the digitally native route. A true digital bank doesn't have RPA. Why? Because RPA is automation of business processes that humans do. In TNX's case, we didn't have that problem because we were very few people on purpose. They also looked at digital native tech like cloud, early usages of AI, very few using ML. And this is all bringing the costs down. It's improving the user experience, and the distribution experience is improving, and the cost of manufacture is improving, and that's really good. That's a good thing to do. But what you're actually doing is you're not innovating, you're not transforming, you're optimizing existing business models. So that's the 3.0. So you can sell loans better, you can sell deposits better, you can provide payments better, cheaper. But if we look globally, despite the circa $3 trillion that's being spent on transformation by traditional banks, let's be open and honest, none of them have actually really affected the top line. The majority of them are affecting the bottom line, that cost. Then we see the likes of Momo and I think we need to redefine what banking is. I'm a very big fan of Momo and what they've done and Cac, etc., what's happening, and Ubank in our own. It's quite an exciting time in Vietnam. They're moving very much to what I call a 3.5, which is embedded banking, or as we call it here in TNX, second part of the sentence banking. So we believe here that no one in the history of mankind has ever said, I want a loan, full stop. What they're saying is, I want a loan to help my family, to educate my children, buy a car, buy a motorbike. And that's embedded banking. And you try and embed the products to deliver that second part of the sentence. And you're seeing a lot of banks doing that quite well. And they're typically a lot more profitable because they're looking at the full supply chain, monetizing, and also the customer experience. But the problem with this model, guys, in 3.0, 3.5, it only works at scale because, in fact, you're selling commodities. And commodities, be it oil, steel, rubber, coconuts, it doesn't matter. Eventually, commodities, as any economist will tell you, will drop to the lowest price. So what you have in these markets is 39 wallets fighting it out here. In the UK, where I was at an industry think tank yesterday with, you have so many banks fighting with this over the same products. And right now, it's no longer technology, guys. We built 2 digital banks, full digital banks, not channels, from core all the way through to the front in 9 months. Because the technology's there. It's been democratized by cloud, by open source, by available design patterns, by go faster data science capabilities like SageMaker in Amazon and similar in Google and Azure. Then now this is a really exciting time now. I've been around this industry since the very, very start, even hanging around in California back when you could afford a house in San Francisco. We're now in 4.0, and it's the world of customer experience. And this is where the profit is, because it's differentiation. And you'll see the likes of Tinkoff and a lot of the banks in China and payment companies in China, where you don't look at banking, you're trying to support a customer's life, not a financial transaction or an embedded transaction. So for example, in TNEX, when you log on, it's an ecosystem, because an ecosystem is defined by any biologist as all the things that you need to survive as a species. In our case, as a human being. And you'll see lots of this happening in Momo. You'll see it happening in various, I suppose the most amazing one for me is Tinkoff out of Russia. What that does is when you log on to our platform or our ecosystem, it's actually made up of 4 channels. It's made up of an emotional and physical health channel, a financial, so we provide lending, the usual deposits, so store of value, exchange of value, so payments, and access to credit, okay? We have another one called social. So we have a full chat channel where you can actually pay by message, peer-to-peer. We built our own TNEX payment network to support that. And the last one we have our merchant channel, okay, where our merchants can issue vouchers. They use the same data science as we have. They can target customers in real time. And of course, they can manage orders and inventory, et cetera, and cash flow. But those platforms are all about, when you log on to TNEX, it'll ask you, how do you feel? It'll ask, how do you feel? Because, and we'll ask you, and you, by emojis, will tell us how you feel. And you'll tell us, well, I feel good because I spent time with family. Or I don't feel well because I don't have enough money, to reach the end of the month. Because remember, our target segment is Gen Z and micro SMEs. Okay, so, there are financial challenges, particularly in COVID. And my heart goes out to every single micro merchant in Vietnam. May they overcome this, and I'm sure they will. So if we look at one of our customers the other day, they ran out of money. We sent them a QR code to eat in one of our merchants. Okay, because we care. We're looking at their lives. And in these ecosystem models, and you'll see more and more, super app, ecosystem, whatever. Not marketplace, okay? Because marketplace is very much an embedded banking concept, a kind of a 3.5. You'll start to see people dealing with people. Banking is invisible and should only appear when it is needed, okay? Which is a fundamental issue because banks aren't needed. Banking is needed. Payments are needed. So we're seeing this breakup facilitated, of course, by APIs and open banking. And if you look at India, for example, the phenomenal steps in the Indian stack. So we're seeing this breakup, but it's all going to be assembled like Lego to support lives. So it's back to customer experience. And it's very simple. Give the customer what you need, what they need. Make next best action. And that demands that you've gone through the 3.0, 3.5 journey or skipped, but also massive usages of data. and data science. You know, I hear a lot of people talking about data science. A lot of it is just PowerPoint vaporware. But now, you know, you're seeing companies, like we relearn our customers' preferences every day, and we learn overnight, we rebuild a whole profile using ML every day to try and give that personalized life experience across our 4 platforms. Because, and I'll finish with this, the difference going forward, the 2 figures that I really care about when I sit with my board are CAC and CLV. So how much did I pay to get a customer, acquire a customer, and how much do I need to spend to keep them active and to retain them and to keep them going around that 80 order, acquire, deepen, retain. That's killing banks. That's why banks are losing money, digital banks are losing money, because they have no differentiation. So they'll do cashbacks and they'll do vouchers. But guys, that means when you look at your customer lifetime value, so the ratio of how much money you're going to earn or through a lifetime or have earned against your cost of acquisition, it's wrong. So, you know, in my times when I was in VC, you know, it was one of the first things that I looked at in any Series B or Series C. If your CAC is 50,000 dong and your customer lifetime value is 20,000 dong, you're going bankrupt soon. Because eventually the funders will stop giving the easy money. Okay, I'll finish with that.
Thanks, Bryan. I think that's a very good insight on how do we measure the customer acquisition cost. I think that's an important parameter for the health of any of the digital banks or the wallets or something. So I think in a way you've answered a couple of questions from the audience on can digital bank be implemented on cloud solutions like the AWS and all. I think I take an S from there. And then how do you compete with the incumbent banks? I think you have answered in a way in your explanation. Thanks, Mr. Bryan. So moving to the next part of the question, I would like to get insights from Ms. Tho. So what we see in the market is innovation is happening. Innovation is happening on one end. At the same time, you have to protect any mishap that can happen with the innovation. So both should go hand in hand. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on what is happening with respect to the digital fraud or the risk management capabilities with the banks, because we see that it's an interesting pattern in Asia. So specifically in Vietnam, do we see any of the banks are experimenting with respect to latest innovations or technologies in managing the digital fraud or risk management and all? So Mr. Any insights from that?
Okay, thanks, Kopan. I think the fraud risk is, I think, quite challenging, but also very interesting for myself, right? So for the bank, we all know that with technology, banks can acquire a lot of customers, but also having new risks. So technology enables banks to reach out to a wide range of customers, onboarding them without any physical contact. For example, providing eKYC for several minutes, they can become the bank client, right? And performing a real-time transaction as well. However, this comes with a new threat to security, ranging from cyber criminal using a lot of various phishing techniques to the more sophisticated version of traditional fraud. For example, application fraud, payment fraud, or identity fraud, right? Therefore, I think banks should do a lot of things in order to manage those fraud risks. And using machine learning or data analytics can help a lot in the fraud risk area. So bank definitely can use AI or machine learning in many different areas, such as KYC, anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing, sanctions screening, or transaction fraud, so on and so forth. And the combination of advanced data analytics and digital technology contribute a big role in the fight against fraud. For example, for the eKYC, we can see that bank can compare the actual face of customer with the customer shown ID and double check with the bank own face ID, right? And therefore they can detect whether the customer is real or not in order to provide the customer service. Another example is like bank can use machine learning in order to alert transactions that having high chance of being fraud. Some real example we can see in Vietnam, here's like some banks in Vietnam, I think they do apply technology and the model and the machine learning into the fraud risk management, including fraud detection or fraud prevention, right? So for this bank, for those banks in Deloitte, we support by using not only a database for scenarios setting rule, but also we build machine learning model for early fraud detection for some business aspect of the bank. After the model is built up, we also support the bank to implement those models into the real system, which ensure that model can go live and having practical impact on the bank anti-fraud or anti-money laundering practice. And we want to emphasize here is that fraudsters are evolving very fast and I think very quick with a lot of sophisticated technology. So bank and financial companies should equip themselves with more advanced technology or data analytics, because we think manual paperwork or Excel spreadsheet, I think cannot be enough. For example, you should use the machine learning model to detect the strange behavior of customer log in into the system, changing the password or transfer money to different strange merchant account or suspicious account, right? By using the machine learning model, we can detect that, but using another maybe Excel technique, I think it's very difficult to support the bank. I think in order for the bank to manage the fraud risk, technology or data, or I think model just one aspect, we also would like to emphasize the bank to having more appropriate fraud risk management framework, starting from a robust governance framework where I think the board of directors should set a ton from the top to the board of management, and all of the frontline people need to aware of those fraud risks in order to prevent those risks, right? And also bank should having more data governance framework, which help the bank to collect enough data to having the data with a good quality to support for different purpose of risk management. Bank also should prepare some sufficient resources in order to equip them with the digital or fraud prevention and detection capability as well, because it's a quite new area in Vietnam market. And here in Deloitte, we can leverage from the regional leading practice and real case in Southeast Asia or Asia Pacific best practice to support the bank in Vietnam. And last but not least, I think banks should also try to educate customer and increase awareness for their customer as well, because a lot of digital and technology risks also involved from the customer through a lot of the ID theft or phishing email or social engineering. So a customer should be together with the bank in the fight against fraudster, right? We think that easy said than done, but we are happy that bank in Vietnam having more proactively role in the area of technology, data analytics, and also build up the strong risk management culture to compete with the new risks. And we are very happy to support the bank and customer for this journey. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. I think for the comprehensive answer. Looks like it requires a lot of things to manage effectively the digital fraud. Like you've brought in few points like the right risk management culture. The board should be in lines to it. They should be supportive, and then proper risk modeling structures when we deal with all this emerging technology. So I think in your answer, it shows a lot of experience you have went through, got your hands dirty in building some of these models. Good luck there, Ms. Tho. So maybe I've moved to Mr. Juk on the similar question. So I think Ms. Tho has mentioned on bringing the customer awareness. So I think I elaborate on that. Mr. Juk, what do you see to increase the adoption of all these digital things in nation? So knowing around 30% unbanked, but the internet penetration, the mobile penetration is very high in Vietnam. So how do we increase the adoption of these emerging technologies or the digital tools? So is it lack of customer confidence or the customer awareness? That's why the percentages are less, or what are your thoughts there?
Okay, thank you for your question. Personally, I believe that the customers are only interested in where the financial services can easily and conveniently meet their requirements, not what technology is behind that. So the goal of the bank is towards service quality, not finding way to put the emerging technology into operation. Of course, the application of new technology can be a revolution in the provision of financial services if the right time, the right customer, and the right nature of the service. Therefore, along with the trend of the digital age, the application of emerging technology is necessary but should be cautioned, especially risk assessment and compliance with the provision of the law. Currently, technology, especially in emerging technology, develop at a very fast rate, causing the appearance of many new and unprecedented business model without any legal regulation to regulate. For example, we know the P2P lending model, cross-border money transfer, personal financial management, or user data sharing. I give an example of technology for eKYC services, such as facial recognition, biometric, which are really necessary and must be implemented immediately after obtaining the allows SBV. Other technology should be also deployed immediately, so that big data analytic, business process automation, artificial intelligence application in credit scoring, used in the financial sector, and do not need to wait for another legal document. However, implementing a new technology when it is not mature enough without best practice can bring unpredictable consequences. For example, the loss of customer data, not just in an incident, but can be lost in a long time, in a long process, or having no control over who or what data is used for what purpose will lead to serious consequences. The results are many times greater than the benefits that it can bring as a beginning. And I believe that you know that Vietnam government, as well as the State Bank of Vietnam, so caution when bringing emerging technology to life. The trial, the sandbox for fintech is very attractive for the attention of many companies. But I think in the first quarter of 2021, the State Bank of Vietnam just submitted to the government to propose to develop a decree on a control testing mechanism for fintech activity in the banking sector. And we had to wait after the government allows the SBV when develop the decree. And based on some leader of SBV, we had to wait at the end of this year. So I think that you had to make by yourself which technology should be applied immediately and which one have to wait. And I just think that in this field, we try to be a pioneer, but don't let your customer be tester. Thank you.
So I think that's a great wise words. So, and I sincerely wait for the decree of bringing a framework of how do we test these new models or the technologies. I think sandbox is a very great idea. We have seen this in the ASEAN. Many of the countries are having this sandbox approach. Thanks, Mr. Đức. So I think we are 13 minutes left in the panel time, so I'll try to speed up a little bit. So, Mr. Anthony, that brings to you on some of the latest emerging business models we are seeing, like technology as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. So what are your thoughts there? Do you see this will apply to Vietnam? And how do you plan to leverage on these models?
Sure. So You're right. The boundaries between banks or financial institutions and technology companies are blurring. For that matter, anybody can enter the space, and we're seeing that market by market, right? Not just wallets or big tech companies, but this extends to telcos and retailers and the like. And the reason it is attractive in our kinds of markets, particularly Vietnam, is there is still a large unsolved problem, right? And the solutions seem to be in cooperation, where each entity brings the assets that they have to solve this problem. So technology companies like Momo approach this as an opportunity. Momo has over 10 years built a large ecosystem of partners, telcos, retail merchants, online marketplaces, and we're integrated host to host with most banks in the country to deliver a very broad range of use cases, right? Mobile top-ups and utilities and money transfers and merchant payments, online, offline, domestic, international, daily life, transport, food, lifestyle, travel, entertainment. And we now house third-party mini apps in our app, like a coffee shop or a logistics provider or the whole host of possibilities there. And what we do is, with deep integrations with our partners, we help deliver, I think what Bryan spoke about, which is that superior customer experience in an embedded and, as far as possible, invisible way. Now, as Momo embeds itself in the daily lives of millions of Vietnamese, we are in a better position to serve the financial system, whether it's banks or lenders or asset managers or insurance companies. And we do this on several fronts. Right? I think part of it is the data and everything we learn, which allows us, because we have a layer of identity, we have a layer of transaction patterns in daily life, and we also have a lot of information around credit, because a large number of lending institutions use us for collection purposes and, in fact, even disbursements. So that's where we build out, again, credit scoring tools or propensity modeling, which can help, where the data doesn't move anywhere, but we are able to provide in an aggregated form an indicator of whether a client is good for credit or good for a wealth product or good for an insurance product. And that helps financial institutions increase the penetration of a severely underpenetrated market that Mr. Duk also spoke about. So that's one layer. The other is, a lot of panelists spoke about eKYC. Here's where we can enable digital onboarding. We do that all day long, but we do that not just for ourselves, but for other financial institutions, because we are a central bank regulated entity. We have the ability to provide eKYC and digital onboarding. The third layer is just the payments flows on disbursement and collections that I spoke about, which lowers the cost of your operations. So whether it's the cost of distribution or customer acquisition, the cost of operations, the cost of credit, or even retention, we can provide a full stack of services to financial institutions. And now what we're doing is we're embedding ourselves, we're creating embedded products in partnership with these institutions. So we have a pay later product, which we're working with a bank as the balance sheet. And we're embedding that in a lot of our use cases. We have a money market fund equivalent product where we work with an asset manager to deliver. And the benefit is now we can lower the entry barrier. So we can bring it down to 10,000 dong where you can put money in, and it's a financial institution behind it. So that's how we are working through or trying to maximize the opportunity of providing services which will ultimately benefit the larger Vietnamese population.
Thanks, Mr. Anthony. I think the use cases you've mentioned are quite interesting. And then the whole ecosystem model you're building, leveraging on what are the new concepts, that is quite good. I really like this, the pay later thing, which we are working with the banks, and then the money market working with the asset management company. I think this really gives opportunity for retail kind of a people to invest in a low value kind of thing. So that's quite interesting. So I think thanks for that. Maybe I will move to the next, my last question of the session today to Mr. Bryan. So Bryan, I'll keep it simple. Your customer happiness index is quite popular in the region. So I would like your thoughts to elaborate more on what's this index, and how do you measure it, measure this happiness index, and how do you use it in your day-to-day business?
Okay. I think this builds on a lot of what we're talking about, a move towards an ecosystem, not a marketplace. And an ecosystem gives you everything to live your life happily and in contentment. Okay. So what we've done, and actually last night we released another part of that. So right now, for example, in our financial channel within our ecosystem, we help you manage your money. Okay, we help you get to the end of the month. We give you advice. But what's really interesting is, the financial index in Vietnam is quite low in comparison to other areas in the SEA. How we do that is we spent 2 months with our psychologists and sociology team here building a set of emojis, okay? So we're trying to make sure that people understand and are happy in that area. But that's just one part of it. The other part is social. So through our chat channels and our recommendation channels, that you can socially interact, okay? And that, which, as we know in Vietnam, is hugely important. On the physical and emotional side, as I said before, when you log on, we ask you how happy you are. I think we're the first bank in the world to ever do that. And you pick the emojis, and then we ask you, well, why are you unhappy or happy? Did you eat well? Did you sleep well? Did you play video games too much? It's a Gen Z. Or did you chat to your friends? And then on the merchant side, we're tracking, where your footfall is, what do you like, what your cohorts, what your recommendations are. But even on AKYC, when we're doing AKYC, we don't just do it to mitigate the classic risk of AML or to know your customer better or customer checking. We actually are taking a full video of you, and we're trying to figure out emotionally. We use emotional identification to understand how you are. Because, we can run ML and can tell us if you're happy, sad, okay? We're also introducing voice as another factor soon. And we're using voice patterning through a fintech, which will actually tell us if you're happy or sad. And we're taking all of this information in real time. How much money you have, how you spend, where you are, how do you feel today, how physically fit. So fitness came last night with a first little release with step counters and we take all of this information into our data lake in real time. And in real time, it's processed into how happy do we think our customer is. Why? Because 70% of everything we do in life, we're no longer in banking, guys. We're in experience, and you can see, trendsetters like Momo driving that en masse. We're trying to serve the customer, not just their banking needs. Banks exist to serve needs. Banks don't exist to exist. Okay. So we take all this information. When I'm sitting with my Exco team here, I want to know what the happiness index. What's generally are people happy? Now this will start to appear on our app very soon. Now it's internal as we build up the data, but also we'll do cohort analysis. How happy are your friends? Oh, I chatted to that person. Well, that makes you unhappy. Perhaps you shouldn't chat to that person in the future through our chat channel. So we're taking all of the information. And I suppose the reason we did this, when I had this vision, wandering through the streets of Hanoi, about 2 years ago, it was very much about serving the total person and helping. Because, of course, it comes back to what Mr. Duck said. We've got a huge challenge as an industry, as a financial services industry, as a fintech industry, or as just generally human beings, to address the financial inclusion agenda here. And that financial inclusion agenda is a problem because most people don't want bank accounts. A lot of merchants don't want bank accounts for various reasons. So we need to provide an experience that they want to use, because they don't want to per se use banking. So for our merchant platform, we say, do you want to drive sales? Do you want to reduce cost? Do you want free marketing, customer communication management? That experience. Okay? And it's managing the experience. And experiences are emotional. And 70% of everything you do in your life is emotional, at least. Okay? So we call it, we looked at emotional index, happiness index. For me, it's happiness. Okay. So going forward, we'd like to measure the happiness of all of our customers in Hanoi, which we can do right now. We'll put on the app, or in Da Nang. The average age of my customer is 24.1 years old. What is the spread on happiness across that? Because if customers are happy, they buy. Paying people massive amounts of bill pay, offers, reductions, cashbacks, freebies doesn't generate loyalty. It never has. It just generates an expectation to get something for free. So your business is in trouble. Managing the customer and measuring the total customer, the whole total holistic across our 4 platforms, we get a score. And we're learning that score. We're using ML, we're using stuff from SageMaker, we're also using some really interesting e-com stuff from Apache called Predict.io to run advanced models to figure out how happy. And by the way, at the end of the day, you'll see these metrics appearing at board tables. How happy are our customers? Not how much money do we make, because guys, the amount of places our customers can shop is growing and growing and growing. And you know what? If we don't provide something compelling, something that cares about a customer, something that cares about the agenda of the young people here, we are not going to be perhaps as sustainable as we were when all we had to do was take in cheap deposits and lend out expensive loans. Okay.
Thanks, Brian. I think it's an interesting insight how we are pulling the customer happiness index to drive some of business. I think when you're saying, it makes me realize that no bank has asked me so far how happy I am. So far, I only received notification that you're...
Mr. Gopal, I need you to download TNEX immediately after here. No,
okay,
I paid my cost of acquisition. Go on.
I'm taking the next flight to Vietnam. So I think we are over short of time. We have 1 minute left. So I will take a quick concluding remarks from all of you. I appreciate we keep it very minimum 1 sentence or 2 sentences. Maybe I start with Mr. Juk. I think you have heard from all the panelists and you have worked in digital strategy. What are 1 or 2 concluding statements about the opportunity in Vietnam, or any other thoughts you have?
Okay. How can I say? Maybe that the Vietnamese people, especially the younger generation, are very responsive and excited in using new technology in finance service. With a country of nearly 100 million people, of which nearly a quarter are in the golden age of population, it is sure to be an attractive market for the technology company and for an investor. And I hope you will find the right direction for your business and success. Good luck and stay safe.
Thanks. I think very interesting words. I see the word attractive, gold, and also that's quite exciting. So maybe I go to Mr. Anthony, 1 or 2 concluding statements or remarks.
I won't prolong this further since it's already a minute past. No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure participating in the panel. And yeah, I think I share the excitement around how this space is going to evolve in Vietnam.
Okay, thank you so much. Good luck to everyone. So Mr. Bryan, 1 or 2 sentences very quickly on the concluding note.
Keep it quick. Thank you to Deloitte. Doing these type of things are really important. Thank you to the other panelists. I predict that digital in Vietnam is going to be fantastic. For those of you who know what pho is, okay, it's amazing. And thanks to the SPV and thanks to the industry players and FDI, I think truly, and I'm very proud to be here in Vietnam on this journey, that in the next very short period, Vietnam will be seen as a shining light of digital. And I'm very excited about it.
Thanks. We share the same excitement, Mr. Bryan. Good luck to you. So finally, Ms. So, any concluding remarks? 1 or 2 sentences, Ms. So.
So thanks a lot for all panelists and attendants for joining us for a very important topic today. We think that digital banking is a must trend in Vietnam, and we are very happy to support you along the way. And take care. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. I think before I close this, we'll be posting in the chat group an evaluation of this whole seminar. I request all the participants to give your feedback there. Hung, maybe you want to put in the chat group? Yeah, just quickly put your feedback on this, and then we will use it to organize it better and better in the coming days. Just bear with us, the panelists, for a few minutes. We really thank you, everyone, for joining today, and we really liked some of your insights.